Today I want to show you how I organize my palette and why. Now this is the palette I used when I was younger, and I just don't see any real reason to do that anymore, but at one time it was sort of a badge of honor to have so much paint on the palette, but right now I see no real advantage to doing that. First off, I don't need a lot of palette space, and of course this changes with individuals, but for me a palette this size is adequate even on larger paintings. For me the most important thing is the arrangement of colors. It's like playing a piano or anything else. Every time you would play a piano, you wouldn't want all the keys in a different place on the keyboard. Well, these colors are my keyboard, and I know exactly where they are every time I paint. So right here I have my white and black, and here I have my primary colors, blue, yellow, and red. Over here I have my earth colors, and then here if I need more colors such as greens and other odd colors, I'll put them here. So every time I dip into my palette, I know exactly what note I'm hitting, and I can easily go for it. The second thing is I like to keep my palette as close to me as possible. Sometimes I even put it right next to my board here. And of course, when I'm painting out in the field, that's the way I have it there, right next to my painting. The advantage of that is I can see what color I'm mixing, and I can easily compare it to my painting. If it's too far away, then it makes it a little more difficult. Now the palette itself is just glass, and this happens to be non-glare glass. And underneath it, I've just put a piece of cardboard, painted it a middle tone gray. That way when I mix my colors, I'm not having to compare that to other colors underneath. A lot of palettes are this reddish wood color or some kind of mahogany, whatever. And if I were to mix a color next to that warm reddish look, then it would really change my thinking about what color I'm mixing. So this neutral color really works best for me. That way I don't have to compare the color of the palette to the color of the paint I'm mixing, which can be confusing. So if you were to mix paints next to a warm, dark value, it will throw off your judgment as to what you think that color actually is. If you use acrylics, a spray bottle is always very handy. And once this paint dries on the palette, I often clean my palette quite frequently, and then that dried paint, if I spray it just slightly with some water and use my razor blade, that paint will scrape off very easily. It's almost like putting a thin coat of lubricant on the palette. So when you slide that razor blade over it, that lubricant just lifts that acrylic paint right off. Here I have just a small container with water that helps me mix the paints without dipping into dirty water. And just down below me here is where I clean my brushes. Now since acrylics dry so fast, if I'm going to leave for a while and I want to keep my paints damp, I'll just spray it with the atomizer. I have a little box here, I'll spray that as well. And I just lay this box right over the paints, and that'll keep those paints wet for quite some time. So I hope these few tips help. Thanks for watching.